Welcome to We Learn Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 8 of Political Obligation and Revolution. The topics which are to be covered are political obligation and revolution, their interrelatedness, origin and nature of concept of political obligation, characteristics, different theories, concluding appraisal, revolution, its nature and implication, characteristics of revolution, and revolution, a series of events, different theories, theorizing revolution, and concluding appraisal of revolution. Political revolution. The concern of a political scientist is not only confined to the study of authority, but also extends to the problem of power being acceptable to the people over whom it's exercised. A political scientist does not only see or does not only study authority or various kinds of authority, but he or she also studies that it also extends to the power that he has, whether it's acceptable to the people over whom it's exercised, whether people accept him as the authority figure or not. If people don't accept him as the authority figure, then again that rule has to be rechanged. Next, a study of the concept of political obligation necessarily leads to an investigation of related terms, political legitimacy and revolution. A study of political obligation also leads to the studies of what is political legitimacy and revolution. Political obligation and revolution. The interrelatedness of these complementary terms, the relation between authority and obligation is inseparable, since one of the essential features of authority is the right to receive obedience. We shall examine whether there exists a right or a duty to resist the state. It's a well-established fact that people obey only a legitimate authority. Whoever authority is legitimate, recognized, only people obey to that authority, and to that authority only which seeks the good of the people. This is so because politics is described as a study of the struggle for power, whether by peaceful or violent means, where political obligation and revolution have important ramifications. Politics is described as a study for the struggle for power, where people struggle for power and authority, whether by peaceful, violent, or non-violent means. Origin and nature of the concept of political obligation. How does this particular word originated? The term obligation originates from a Latin word obligate, implying something that binds men to perform what is enjoined upon them. Obligate is to do the things what is entrusted or whatever is told to the people. This has various connotations. In the realm of ethics, it informs a man to discharge his duties, which he accepts on the basis of his rational understanding. So, in the realm of ethics, it basically tells a man to discharge his duties in the rightful manner and upon his rational understanding. Whatever he or she feels is correct, to do that, or to actually do a particular duty, or to accept a particular duty on the basis of his understanding. It follows that the case of political obligation rests upon issues relating to the nature of authority that involves within its fold the whole world of existing rights, laws, and political organization generally. So, it basically says that political obligation also rests upon issues relating to authority, that again, the whole world of rights, laws, rules and regulations consists. Let's see now what are the characteristics of political obligation. Political obligation is thus a frame through which people accept the commands of the men in authority. This means that it has certain distinct characteristics. Political obligation is obliging to the people who are in authority, means basically obedience, to show obedience to the rightful person. The distinct characteristics are management of public affairs, political legitimacy, resistance to authority. Now let's see how public affairs can be managed, or management of public affairs. The art of running any government is not easy. It's a difficult and extensive task, and any wrong move or incorrect policy decision would entail serious consequences. The art of running government is not easy. It's a great responsibility, and a great decision making skill requires to choose what is right and what is wrong, and to go with the right thing for the people at large. On the contrary, a positive and right step taken by the government for the people would bring good results for the development of a nation. When positive and right steps are taken for the benefit of the people, it brings good results, and it also pays for the government at large. Now let's see what is political legitimacy. A study of the concept of political obligation necessarily leads to the investigation of the related theme of political legitimacy and effectiveness. Political legitimacy. The stability of a democratic political system not only depends upon economic development but also upon its legitimacy. Legitimacy, it means the thing which is recognized. Legitimacy includes the capacity to produce and maintain a belief that the existing political institutions or forms are the most appropriate for society and is said to rest on the general will. It's said to rest. Legitimacy basically includes that whatever things are done by the person who is legitimate, they are the most appropriate and they are the most rightful things and for the welfare of the people at large. So that the misunderstandings should not occur and there is peace which will prevail. Resistance to authority. The idea of political obligation not only tells people to obey authority but also desires them to be critical about the way authority is exercised. Many a times we see that there is resistance to authority or people not actually obeying whatever is said. So it's not only just obeying the authority but also being critical that the way authority is exercised and how one can better it by giving suggestions. The people should scrutinize the action of their rulers and resist an invasion on their liberties. Thus, the idea of political obligation also involves the idea of resistance to authority. As it is said, the people should scrutinize the action of their rulers and resist an invasion on their liberties. People should not invade their liberties, but scrutinize, see actually how the authority is being exercised. Is it being too liberal? Is it being too authoritative? Is it being imposive? If it is imposing, then people can always express themselves. So basically, to see, to analyze how the authority is exercised over the people, because that again leads to better decisions and better governance. Different theories of political obligation. Various theories have been enunciated on political obligation. These theories explain the kind of sanctions behind the concept of political obligation. First is divine theory, that is, sanction in faith. This theory is one of the oldest, explaining the reasons of obedience to a state's ruler. It explains obedience to a state's ruler. Divine theory, it means that the ruler is the most supreme. The ruler is divine. We should have faith. We should have that respect for the state's ruler, and ultimately obedience should be given to the ruler. It implied that the ruler has derived his authority directly from God. Divine theory also connects this theory with God, that the ruler, whoever is ruling over the people, that person has derived his authority directly from God. So a person needs to obey the ruler. When you obey the ruler, you obey God. This theory advocates that. Criticism of the divine theory of political obligation. When there is a particular theory which is being espoused, there are criticisms which are bound to follow. So, divine theory of political obligation also face some criticisms. Let's see what are they. The divine theory of political obligation received scathing criticism at the hands of eminent thinkers like Grotius, Hobbes, Locke, who rejected its metaphysical premises and traced the source of political obligation in the consent of individuals. They said that individuals are supreme. their consent need to be taken for any decision, so that metaphysical thing should not exist, because it is something very subjective, and this kind of theory should not be applied to the people, because an individual is a human being. He or she can also commit mistake. So they rejected its theory. When the state and the church got separated due to the growth of secularism, temporal powers became supreme to spiritual powers. Temporal powers became supreme to spiritual powers. It means states' powers became supreme as compared to the powers of the church. Consent or contract theory. Next is consent or contract theory. Sanction in will of the people. It means, as it says, that the people are supreme. Any decision or any particular thing or any policy has to be taken the consent of the people at large, because it is the people who will follow it. Though the idea of a contract or consent as a basis of obligation is quite ancient and is found in ancient Hindu thought too. It was mainly in the 16th and the 17th century in Europe that sophisticated theories of contract were developed to explain political obligation. The social contract theory justifies the conception that the ruling authority, if he has to be legitimate, must rest ultimately on the consent of the governed. It's very important, according to the contract theory or consent theory, that to rule people, we need the consent of the people. We need their support. We cannot just impose things on them. That will not result in anything. So, people's will need to be seen, need to be exercised. Like other theories, there was also criticism of the consent theory of political obligation. Let's see what's it. Though the consent theory had its field day in the 17th and the 18th centuries, and even now has its own significance on account of constituting the moral basis of a democratic order, it suffers from certain weaknesses too. The theory makes the state an artificial organization. The theory takes the state as an artificial thing, and it does not give that much importance to the state which needs to be given for the benefit and welfare of the people at large. It gives too much importance to the individual and the general will. The people may go to the extent of staging a rebellion on the plea that they withdraw their consent in as much as the government has committed such an action in violation of the general will. The people can also go to the act of rebellion, so that can prove negative. Next is prescriptive theory. It says sanction in reverence to the established conventions and traditions. According to this theory, political authority and reverence to it are based on the principle of customary rights. Authority is legitimate if it is sanctioned by long-standing custom or tradition. Customary rights means rights given by the custom or tradition. Means a particular political authority seeks its reverence from a particular custom or tradition. If a particular custom or tradition gives sanction to it, only then the theory or a particular way is appropriate. So, customary rights, a particular theory has these rights to rule over the people. So, a theory has to be strong with respect to traditions and customs. The people obey their rulers because the fact of obedience has become like a well-established convention. It has become like a tradition, it has become like a rule, it has become like a daily act. That is why people obey their rulers. So, the rulers derive their authority from well-established conventions and customs, whatever is being followed from the ancient time. The traditionalists view the state as a delicate structure built over the years and which represents a balance of conflicting interests. Whatever conflicting interests of the people are there, the state represents a balance of them. There were also criticism of the prescriptive theory of political obligation. Like other theories, the prescriptive theory has its own weaknesses. The source of political obligation lies not only in paying reverence to well-established practices, but also in doing away with them. People desire change, and that is important. So people desire change. The source of political obligation does not only lie in well-established practices. The practices could become redundant. The practices could become stagnant. So it does not mean that people should keep on following the same old practices. Change is constant. Change has to be there. So if new theories and if new mindsets emerge, what's wrong in that? People should follow that. Next, these are some of the tasks which you have to do it yourself. First is define political obligation. What is political obligation? What are its distinctive characteristics? Next is what are the limitations of the divine theory of political obligation, means its criticism. So you have to do these tasks yourself, whatever we discussed right now. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.